attention is so important as a new mum, because yeah, there's a new baby in the picture, but also there's a new mum in the picture, and that is a huge title that is stripping you almost from everything you knew before that, and also molding you to be this new person in the matter of like weeks, right? And so it's pretty intense. Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Krupa and I make faith-based content here on YouTube. So welcome and thanks for coming back if you are a returning subscriber. I hate saying subscriber, a returning friend. Today's episode of New Baby Mama, we are talking all things identity. As a new mum, oh my gosh, hello hormones. Hormones were all over the place and so was my identity. I often found that I was responding and reacting to situations in a way that did not reflect who I was. And so I knew there is something up here and I need to figure it out. So I am going to be sharing with you guys my 5 discoveries in hopes that it would help someone that's going through something similar or that has gone through something similar, and just to get that conversation flowing. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. So I've spoken about my labour experience. I'm not going to get into it, but I do have a beautiful, beautiful daughter who is now 8 months old. Her name is Zoe and I'm now pregnant with our second one as well. So when I first discovered that I needed to get down to grips with my journal and my thoughts was when I started to respond to small things in such an enormous way, because they will be enormous in my head. And so I thought, I'm not at peace with how I responded. So there is something that's not balanced here. And that's when I discovered that, okay, I need to get down with this situation basically. So I'm going to give a context story so that you can kind of understand what happened when I discovered these things. I think Zoe might have been like 4 weeks or something. We were in our room and she was crying for some milk and Leslie was about to feed her. She was dealing with colic at the time, and so I read a few things the night before as to how I should feed her, etc. And so when it came to Leslie feeding her, I was like, you need to do it this way. And I think he posed a challenge to me. At the time it felt like a challenge, but when I had reflected on it later on, I realized that actually he just wanted a rationale behind why it's good for our daughter, right? But because he challenged it, I was like, what? And out of nowhere comes a huge volcano, air coming out of my ears, my eyes were like red. I'm joking, by the way, it was not very animated like that at all, but I just had a huge outrage of anger, just other emotions. And then as if that wasn't enough, I put my clothes on. So this was like at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. I put my clothes on, put some slippers on, and I was like, yeah, kudos to you, my child, and kudos to you, my husband. I, Krupa Abrokwa, am out of the picture. As if that was not dramatic enough, I then left and walked for miles on end. Let me just give you some context here. 4 weeks post cesarean, you're not supposed to exercise that extensively. I walked for miles. Like, I came back, I would say 2 hours later, in so much pain because I'm not supposed to exercise that much, but because I just wanted to prove a point, I had an episode of walking out and walking for 2 hours and coming back in pain. So I believe we all learn traits from our parents, right? Or those that brought us up. And so early on into marriage, this is how I would have responded. But I had overcome this and I had grown from it. So for me to now fall back to that place, I'm like, oh yeah, this is definitely a telltale sign that I need to find out how I am doing and what it is that's triggering me. So I share what I share today and basically all of my content that's already gone and that's to come, in hopes that it would encourage somebody, but also in hopes to just get that conversation flowing about the normalities of motherhood. And I also share what I share because sometimes it's really hard to understand what we're going through. And sometimes it takes somebody to say something that will be like, I can relate to that, and that's totally what I'm going through, but I couldn't quite put it into words. So I hope that I could be your journaling thought process. I'm just babbling at this point, let's get into it. So 5 things I found. Let's start with number 1. I was in need of attention. That reaction to such a small event showed me something so pivotal, and actually this didn't need a journal for me to understand. I was probably like 10 minutes into my journey of walking off to find that actually what I was lacking is attention. What I needed was attention, and I don't mean to sound like a 15-year-old child that wants to seek attention, but you have to remember that going from the context of like 0 to 1, when there was no one else that was dependent for your partner's attention, and all of a sudden now that attention has shifted to a newborn. And that's not only in marriage, but also like my mum, for example, she would call, and before anything she'd want to see Zoe, she'd want to know how she is, she'd want to know how much she ate, she'd want to know when she pooed. And only after all of that information, once she's satisfied with knowing everything about Zoe, was she like, oh, and you, how are you? Like, what's going on with you? When did you last eat? And so I think it wasn't the need of attention, like I was craving for someone to be like, hi, like, look at you, oh my gosh, or praise me or anything like that. But it was attention to say like, you matter as well. I think attention is so important as a new mum, because yeah, there's a new baby in the picture, but also there's a new mum in the picture, and that is a huge title that is stripping you almost from everything you knew before that, and also molding you to be this new person in the matter of like weeks, right? And so it's pretty intense. And so if you have any new mamas, or if you are a new mama, make sure you implement that system of like, hey, hello, I'm also a new person. In fact, I'm also a newborn, because I've just birthed a child, and now I've just birthed the title of motherhood in me, and I have no idea what this is going to entail. So you need to take care of me as well as the baby. Thank you, and thank you very much. Number 2 is I needed to be heard. So going from 0 to 1, they say, is the hardest of all transitions, and I can only vouch for that because that's all I've had the experience in. But going from 0 to 1 means that all your relationships have to shift, right? So your marriage then takes on a different kind of outlook, because now your marriage has a third person that's also very dependent on you. So your dynamics will all shift. And so in the moment of like birthing motherhood in you, you're also birthing like a new form of relationship with people around you. And so I realized from my outrage of that small event, the shifts of different relationships, like the access that I once had to my husband, where I could be like, oh, come, let's play a game and talk, I no longer had. I needed to find him alone, and finding him alone was hard because there was always a newborn attached to him. Or if he's not doing that, he'll be cooking, or if he's not cooking, then he'll be putting in the laundry. That doesn't happen now, by the way. You can tell this is very early on into the journey of parenthood, because we don't have the same privileges of my husband anymore. And so this is me officially throwing shade to say, cook for me, please. Yeah. So not being heard was directly connected to lack of communication from my part. So because of the lack of direct access that I had of, say, Leslie or my mom, etc., I felt like there was no communication, therefore I wasn't being heard. Now saying that, it brings me to point number 3, which is that I needed my space. I understood when journaling that I felt very clogged in my head and my space, because as a new mum, the newborn is constantly attached to you. So whether you're feeding, or whether you're a real life cuddly cushion, whether you're doing skin to skin, whatever it is, like even when they're sleeping, somehow, some way, some shape, they are on you. And so not only that, but then there's people that will come around your space, and it's just hard to almost detach yourself. And so I quickly learned that actually my space was so clogged with different voices and different people, different responsibilities and different identities. And I just knew that having that space to clear out everyone else and just listen to my own thoughts was something that I very much needed. So if this is something that you're dealing with, oh my gosh, absolutely go and get even 5 minutes of just being away from everyone and just hearing what you're going through and what this new role requires of you. Just getting to terms with it on your own and in your own space is so important if that is something that you need. This brings me to my next point, which is that I needed my cup filled. So everything that I was doing was coming from an emotional place, especially when those early days I was really trying to breastfeed. And so breastfeeding is very emotional and it's very taxing as well, especially if in my conditions I didn't have much milk, and so I could see that my baby girl was not satisfied. I needed my cup filled because I quickly learned that I was running off very little, maybe even no gas at all, right? And so for me that looked like sitting down and spending time with the Lord. And of course this looks so different now that I'm a mum. The time that I had before to the time that I have now is so different, but I knew I needed to do that because for me to be able to be the mother that I feel that I'm purposed to be, I need to be able to be that child first. I need to be able to be dependent on my father first, right? And be filled first. I feel like society has a way of telling mums, I don't know how, but they do, of telling mums that we need to be super mums, right? I had to quickly discover, like, I can't be a super mum. I'm not a superhuman. Like, I am a child myself. I need to be dependent on a source that will fill me up first so that I could be the best for Zoe. And so I knew, okay, cool, if his grace is sufficient for me, and if he has not given me more than I can handle, and he has given me strength, and I could do all things through Christ who strengthens me, I need to be able to spend time and rejuvenate in him first, right? That was what my cup being filled looked like. For you it might look very different. So whatever it looks like, take advantage of what you know of yourself that can bring you joy, that can just feel like freedom, you know. So before I get to point number 5, if you're enjoying this content, please give this video a like. Point number 5 is that my love language was not being met. Different context in life has brought out different love languages in me. I feel like how I received love as a wife to how I receive love as a mother is so different. And it was really important that I discovered that, because I was able to then form my environment to let people know that, like, that's not how I receive love, but thank you. For example, if Leslie was gonna tell me, oh, like, you're an amazing mom, you know, you're doing a brilliant job, I would be like, thank you, but that's not how I receive love. Like, words of affirmation is not my thing. So can you rub my feet, please? So if you're ever thinking, you know, what do I give Krupa for her birthday? Rub my feet, please. If you're ever thinking, what can I show Krupa, you know, to appreciate her? Rub my feet, please. If you're ever thinking, like, you know, it's Mother's Day, how can I treat Krupa? Rub my feet, please. I'm pretty easygoing. Rub my feet, please. You know what? Saying that, I also started to really appreciate people once I started to realize that my love language wasn't being met. And I know it's strange, but I appreciate it because I could now consciously see that they were trying to love on me, right? It started to help me to realize the love tokens that they were giving to me, but also helped me to reinforce that that wasn't my love language, but thank you so much, right? So it was a really weird dynamic of like appreciation, but also like reinforcing that this is not how I want to be loved, but this is how I want to be loved, right? I think realizing that sooner would have definitely avoided my little outburst. I say little, it's huge. So that will be my 5 discoveries that I would like to share with you all today. But ultimately, just to round everything up, it was that my identity was being completely shifted from who I was to now adapting this motherhood title that was so intense, that never had a break, that never had an end to it, right? And so I now needed to learn in such quick succession that this is my new role as a mother. And so intertwining the person that I was before to now this new constant title was a matter of shifting plates. And so I hope that these 5 discoveries have helped you in some way, and let me know in the comment section. I'm intrigued. Did your love language ever change? when you became a mother or when you were married, because I feel like my love languages have changed significantly, I would say 3 times in my life, and so I'd love to know about yours. So let me know in the comment section down below. And also just want to say, if you enjoyed today's video, please be sure to check out the other episode in this series, and I shall see you in the next video. Bye!